Tonight, as we learn that the U.S. is sending an additional 350 troops to help protect the Baghdad embassy, there are growing questions about our progress against ISIS inside Iraq. Pete Hegseth is a Fox News contributor, an Iraq and Afghanistan war vet, and CEO of Concerned Veterans for America. We need another 350 troops. Why and where do we stand with pushing back this group?
Well, the stated mission for the 350 is to protect the Baghdad embassy and protect U.S. interests, U.S. personnel. That's what it is. So if we're talking about destroying ISIS and then sending 350 to protect our embassy, it's sort of like speaking loudly and carrying a small stick.
Well, that's what Larry Korb was saying at the top of the hour. He's saying, look, he's got a plan. He's already sent 350 more troops.
The 350 is not connected at all to whatever it was that he announced today, which was destroy the enemy and manage the problem, which of course is more confusion on the mission. The 350 was connected to a request by the State Department for more personnel to secure Baghdad, which can only be seen as a need for more defensive forces, unless inside that request there are hidden special operators who will be forward deployed to help identify targets and assist Kurdish and Iraqi forces to take the fight to ISIS. But that was not what was articulated today. It was 350 for protection and we're going to destroy. There's a disconnect. At some point, if you're going to destroy, you better commit to the forces and the mission required to do so.
We're going to play the soundbite for the viewers in a minute. Steyerwalt's going to come on. We're going to talk about the politics behind this strange messaging that we got from the president today. We're going to destroy them. We're going to destroy them. We're going to manage them. It's manageable. We're going to get them to the point where it's manageable. What is that like for the troops? I mean, it's fine. It's good for us to sit here and discuss it. Somebody's actually going to have to go out there and do the destroying or the managing, and this is their commander-in-chief.
Exactly. So you've got special, and this is setting aside Afghanistan, the guy in patrol right now that wonders what he's doing over there as well. In Iraq today, you've got special operators who are trained to work alongside local forces, the Kurdish forces or Iraqi forces. They're the ones that would be forward deployed with those troops to help gather intelligence, identify targets, paint those targets for our assets in the air that would then strike those targets. You've got to be forward deployed. You're going to expose yourself. You're going to be involved in combat in order to do that. Except the president reiterated today that the 350 will not be involved in combat operations. So the 350 is meant to plus up the original mission, which is secure American personnel and protect against a humanitarian crisis, not in offensive operations, which is what you're going to need to do in order to destroy. So if I'm that special operator, I don't know what my mission is right now, and that's a problem.
Do you believe that we can get this done in Syria with airstrikes?
No.
Just airstrikes?
No, and there's no one in the Pentagon that thinks that either. If you're going to go into the safe haven of the enemy, and that's where their real safe haven, their logistics, their headquarters is located, you're going to have to be willing to send some element of ground troops, U.S. coalition or otherwise, with heavy air support and forward deployed special operators.
No one's volunteering to help with the coalition. The Australians and the British, okay, that's the usual. But none of these Muslim countries who are saying that they're the #1 targets are volunteering to help us.
That's what they're banking on. They're banking on the straw man of the international community. The reality is the international community looks to our lead, and until we commit alongside our other allies, whether it's the Brits, the Australians, the Canadians, others that have been faithful allies, they're not going to jump in. So to think that Saudi Arabia and Egypt are going to deploy troops to take on ISIS is foolish. Doesn't mean we do it alone, but we are the leaders on our military capability that sets the tone for others to come alongside us.
Pete, good to see you.
Thank you, Megan.
Well, the president raised some serious questions earlier today, as I've mentioned, about our goals. What are they? He's the commander-in-chief. He sets the tone. He makes the case to the American people and the community international. First, he seemed to suggest that our end game is clearly the destruction of this terror army.
So the bottom line is this. Our objective is clear, and that is to degrade and destroy ISIL so that it's no longer a threat, not just to Iraq, but also to the region and to the United States.
It's clear we're going to destroy them. That's the mission. But less than 20 minutes later, in the same speech, he seemed to indicate that containing ISIS to the point where it's manageable, well, that could do the trick as well.
We know that if we are joined by the international community, we can continue to shrink ISIL's sphere of influence, its effectiveness, its financing, its military capabilities, to the point where it is a manageable problem.
Chris Steyerwalt is our Fox News digital politics editor. Enter Joe Biden. We will fight them to the gates of hell. And as Ralph Peters pointed out, we won't even fight them in Syria. I don't know. Doesn't look like we're going to hell. I mean, he was all over the map on this today.
Well, and he intentionally went back to correct himself. Remember, the president said, we're going to be strong. And then you saw him at the end. He realized, ooh, that's a little tougher than I like to be. That's a little harder line than I like to draw and destroy. And he drove the bus all the way back around. 17 minutes later, he came all the way back around to say, basically, just to be clear, we're not trying to win here. We are definitely not trying to win. We're not trying to defeat them. What we're trying to do is contain them so that the magic thing that happens when the Muslim world realigns itself and Sunni and Shia sit down together and make peace, and the new harmony arises, at that moment it'll be fine because we will have contained them somehow. Well, maybe, but when you talk that way about a mission that you are embarking the United States military on, you might confuse people a little bit, not just overseas, but the people at home who are increasingly concerned about the very kinds of things that you were talking about earlier. When you hear about Minneapolis as hotbed of jihadists, when you hear about a guy who dies fighting against decency and civilization, having worked on the tarmac at an airport, you say, things are wrong here. This is a serious situation. And the president says, we can contain it. We can manage this over time. That's not going to work. That won't fly with the electorate.
Well, not only that, Chris, so he comes out today to speak, a day late about the execution of this American journalist, Steven Sotloff. It's like a throwaway at the end of his remarks. Then he addresses the problem with ISIS. First of all, he talks about how when that first emerged, when the threat of ISIS first emerged, it all began when they captured Mosul, which was actually 5 months after they had actually captured Fallujah in Iraq. He completely ignores that. Nobody holds him to account for misstating when this started, a threat at the time he described as JV. The problem is he comes out and he's not straight. And then he also tried to blame it on the Bush administration, the rise of ISIS.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like they don't even have their messaging clear on the political front, never mind on the military front.
So you've got Joe Biden, you have the Secretary of Defense, you have others that are ramping up the rhetoric. You have the members of the president's own party, particularly those in difficult re-election races, I'll point out, who are pushing the president. You got to go harder. You got to speak clearly. You have to sound, dare I say it, Bush-like as you talk about the threat and what the United States is going to do about it. So the president obviously hears that, feels the squeeze, probably doesn't like it, and yet again,
and then says destroy, and then says, wait, I am not George Bush. What did I just
I'm
managed?
Nuanced. Right, exactly. I'm nuanced. I'm not Bush. I'm nuanced.
Chris, good to see you.
You bet.
To the gates of hell, or just inside Iraq, just with targeted strikes that really are just defensive in nature. We have heard repeatedly that Muslim countries need to take a bigger role in the fight against ISIS. Just ahead, we'll speak with a spokesman for one of America's biggest Muslim communities about that. And then, why are Democrats like Al Franken, Jane Harman, and Dianne Feinstein all encouraging the White House to get tougher on this terror threat?
I think it's a major varsity team. I've seen nothing that compares with its viciousness.